Hmm?
All right, we're here with Marilyn Nichols, 86 years old, and it is August of 2024. We start out, will you tell us about what your childhood was like?
My childhood was probably one of the best childhoods that any child could have. I lived on a farm. Well, I was born and raised in Wayne County, and I knew all about the animals. My dad would always take me out with the feeding of the hogs and milking the cows, and my mom always did the chickens and all the other little things around that Dad didn't have time for. And they always took me out and showed me how to do things. So that was kind of my childhood. I worked. When I was 6 years old, I remember they had a push mower. That's all we had back then. And they showed me how to mow around the milk house and different places in the yard where it wasn't hard for me to do up a hill or anything. So, and the house that I lived in for many, many years is now gone. And the Amish bought it and tore it down. So I can't see that home anymore. The first home I had I was only about a year and a half, 2 years old. It was just north of Waynesburg, about a mile. And it's no longer there. So both of my homes are gone as a childhood. My third home. Forget where my third home was. Probably, when we got married. When I was just out of high school. And Paul and I got married, and he worked in Newcastle. So I got a job at the hospital at Newcastle, and we lived in Newcastle for about a year. And then we moved back to the farm. My mom had a stroke, and it was hard for Dad to do a lot of things by himself, so Paul helped him do some farm work and things, and Paul still worked in town too. But we kind of tried to help him and take care of her. And then she had gotten worse, and so she moved to town with my aunt Thelma, and Dad did too. So we moved in on the farm place at that time. Where I grew up as a little child, and I moved back into that. And then after that, Myra, where are we at? I can't remember after, I think Mom and Dad sold the house, the farm, and moved into the house that I now live in. And that's been several years because we moved in before Paul died, and he died in 2003. So
92 you moved in there.
Okay. I think my kids, Paula and Myra, had fun growing up on the farm with their grandparents, and they had many memories. Because we lived next door one another in a farm. It's a little distance, but they could walk down a pathway down to the house, and Grandma would always baby them and took care of whatever they wanted, they got. Most of the time. That's another question.
You mentioned your parents. Who were your parents, and what were your parents like? Tell me about your parents.
Oh, my parents, my dad was Merle Weimer. My mom was Gladys Murray Weimer. My dad was born and was raised around Winchester, Indiana. And my mom was raised around, it was in the southern part of Randolph County, around a little town of Carlos. I don't know too much about their home life because she lost her mom fairly early. It was right after I was born, and I don't remember having a grandma on my mom's side. On my dad's side, of course, he come out of a family of 10 kids, and he was next to the youngest, so I was, about the last grandchild that was born, and I don't really remember a grandma on either side. I never had that relationship between the two of them. So.
And tell him about the sorghum mill. Tell him about the sorghum mill.
Oh, on the Weimer side, I think it was my dad's great uncle was the owner of the sorghum mill. They had one in Winchester and one in Union City, and it was big enough that they sold sorghum to the grocery stores in Union City, Winchester, and it branched out into the Richmond, Wayne County area also. And they usually were in half-gallon or gallon sizes. But they did, and I think it's still going on because I got a thing on Facebook this a couple weeks ago, and the name was Robert Weimer. He lived in Martinsville, and he seen my name on there that I was a Weimer, and he wanted to know if I was related to any of the Weimers that was of the sorghum mill.
Oh, wow.
And so we become friends, and he come to find out he's my third cousin. So that it's interesting as you go along in life, and people you didn't know, and your name comes up, and then, oh, were you so-and-so, It's fun to kind of go back in history.
Mm-hmm. So your parents were farmers, correct?
Farmers all the time, I remember. Yes. Yes.
And then what was your first job? What was your first job after you grew up off the farm?
My first job is after we didn't have cars like everybody else had. My mom would take me to my husband, well, it wasn't my husband at the time, it was my boyfriend, to his brother's house in Newcastle on Sunday evening. And I would stay there till Friday evening, and she would come and get me. And my first job was at a music store. And I worked there for about 9 months. And then what became my sister-in-law, she wasn't my sister-in-law yet, but she was a registered nurse at Henry County Hospital in Newcastle. And she got me a job out there in the office. And I was a bookkeeper and loved it. And then I got married and had to quit because I got pregnant with Paula. And my mom thought there was nothing else but my 2 girls. Every time she had this one arm that didn't want to work very well because she had the stroke, and she would always prop her arm in the chair and hold her head there, and she would talk to me. Loved him. Probably I always said she loved him more than me. And I don't think so. I don't think so.
So that was around, let's see, That was in the 50s, right?
She was born in 60.
Paul was born in 58.
About 58.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How did you meet my grandpa, Paul Nichols? How did you guys meet?
It was at church. His mother had passed away, and he had to go live with his sister, Alice. And they went to the Williamsburg Nazarene Church, and they were big in music. They sang a lot, and it was nothing to go to their home, and they had a piano, and they'd all be gathered around the piano, somebody playing, and all of them was singing. And so his sister, brother-in-law, and one niece and one nephew, they sang together, and so Paul started singing with them, and he was not graduated. He wasn't out of school yet, so he was young, and they wanted somebody to play the piano. So naturally, we had to practice a lot. So Paul and I got to loving one another. So I guess that's how we really met, was through music, I'd have to say, playing the piano. Loved it. Wouldn't change it for nothing.
Music continued to be pretty important throughout your guys' lives, hasn't it? Music has been pretty important throughout your life for you. I know you played the piano very young, and you still are very active in listening to live music. And
yes,
interesting.
I think so.
You were an only child, right?
I was the only child. I had no brothers and no sisters. I always claimed my Aunt Velma as my sister. She was, I don't know how much older, but she was old enough to be a big sister to me. And she had lost her husband and her baby. And so I kind of took the place of a child for her too. And so I always would like for her to come because she always brought me little gifts.
As a young adult, did you set any goals, like things that you wanted to achieve in life or in your career, or?
Oh my! The only thing that I wanted to do, and my mom and dad didn't travel because they lived on a farm. You could never find anybody to take care of your chickens, take care of your hogs, or milk your cows. So we didn't do any traveling. And I told Paul when we got married, I said, there's one thing I'd like to do is see that most of the United States. And we did. We seen a lot of it. Didn't see all of it, but I think I've been in like 46 states.
Wow.
So
Wow.
There's a lot to see, out west especially.
What was your favorite part of the country that you got to see? Do you have one specific that stands out, or?
Well, I always wanted to go to, where's that place that we went to when we was in Vegas, went on down?
The Grand Canyon?
Yellow, not
Grand
Yellow.
Canyon.
Grand Canyon. And my daughter Myra and her husband and I went to Grand Canyon. Or we went to Vegas, and then her and I took a day and went down to the Grand Canyon. It was so beautiful. You just can't think how God made all these things in the United States. And I loved Yellowstone, too. That was probably another part of the... But I never lived out there and see it very often, so that was probably two of the... Although, when I was in high school, so I think about it, our high school seniors went on a school trip, and I got to see the Niagara Falls. And that was probably my first time of being out of the States. And we did a lot up there with the kids I graduated with. So, and that was Williamsburg, Webster, and Whitewater seniors. So, and there's probably other areas I haven't thought of. I loved Louisiana, New Orleans when I went down there when they had their storms. And
her heart belongs to Tennessee, though.
that's true. My heart belongs to Tennessee. I loved it, and I go. Well, Paul and I go down there almost every year, and you never got tired of seeing anything in Tennessee. It seemed like it was always different. So I guess I like everything in the United States, don't I?
Can you tell me what your life was like with the kids growing up so basically when Aunt Myra and my mom Paula, when they were in the house with you and Grandpa Paul, where I know where you guys live, but what was your kind of routine like?
Oh, that's a hard one. What was it like, Myra?
This is your interview.
Huh?
This is your interview.
I know, but I don't know
a lot of it for a lot of years was centered around community.
Yeah, it was centered around community. I forgot that. And Paul loved baseball. He was ahead of a lot of tournaments and a lot of things there in the county. Then, since he had two girls, he wanted them to know softball. So he got the softball. Well, he was the league commissioner and got it started in Wayne County. At that time, there was no girls softball, and he got it started in Wayne County. I've forgotten about that. Glad you brought that up. Oh my, we went on with the softball team and won the state a couple years, and then we went on to the Nationals up in Minnesota. And of course, you're competing against 48, at that time, there's 48 different states. And I think we ended up coming in like 18th or something like that, which wasn't bad, but, of course you want to win. Mm-hmm. First one, but there were some good teams up there. And we didn't think that was bad for, our kids we didn't know what to expect or anything, and it was a good experience. And a friend of ours, Jim Ladd, he furnished the bus. He worked at Wayne Works and could get the school buses, and he rented one and took all the kids up. And some of us drove in cars in case we needed to go make a little trips, and a lot of the kids' parents went up there. So it wasn't just the kids. And then you got to socialize with a lot of friends and make memories with a lot of them.
Good.
Yeah, talk about the fire department, Lions Club.
Oh, yeah. I forget. He was on the fire department for many, many years. I don't know how many years. I'm guessing close to 20.
Never get it.
And at that time, he was custodian up at the Williamsburg School, and the railroad came right through our town, and especially in the fall when the things got really dry, they would get on fire because of the train. The sparks would fly out, and it would get on fire. And a lot of times it was in the, around noon or afternoon, and he would run after he'd hear the siren. he would run from the school down to the fire department. And a lot of times he was the only one because everybody was at work. So he'd take the truck out as far as he could get and then run the hose and put the fires out. Yeah, that was,
Wow.
and he did love it. And he was in the Lions Club, and I made a lot of friends with people in the Lions Club. He was president, worked himself up as president, secretary, treasurer. I guess he was in a lot of stuff. And of course, when your husband is in it, you're kind of in it too. So I did.
Yeah.
I was behind him all the time, pushed him.
Were there, let's talk about significant inventions throughout your life.
The what?
Inventions, things from TVs to the internet. Has there been anything that's really changed your life or how you live?
Oh my!
Well, when you grew up, you only had radio, right?
When I grew up, we had radios, no TVs.
Do you remember when you got your first TV?
Probably when we were married.
Grandma and Grandy didn't have one when you were at
I
home?
don't think so. I think they got it right after when TVs first came out. My husband and I, and Paul and I, were not against the TVs because we thought it was nice to be able to see a movie or to see what happened or to watch a ball game or a football game or whatever. We enjoyed that. But my mom and dad just wasn't quite sure it was the Christian thing to do. So I can remember my mom, she got on these soaps, and poor little thing, she got in there and turned it on, and she sat right in front of the TV so my dad couldn't see her. And she'd be watching her soap operas, and she thought that was something big. That I guess maybe that was one big thing that we always had a TV in our home, I think. All that I can remember after Paul and I were married. I don't remember when we bought the first one.
I don't know. It was in 1964 when we got our first color TV. I remember that.
64
in
when we got our first
Newcastle.
color TV. Okay, I didn't remember that.
First show we watched was Red Skelton.
Red Skeleton. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't remember any of that. I didn't remember. I know we had a black and white one, but I didn't remember when we got the colored one. And now I have a big TV, but wouldn't mind having a bigger one. Probably never will.
What about significant events that have happened through your life? Is there one event that you specifically remember hearing about or even being a part of? Wars, 9/11, stuff like that. Is there any one thing that sticks out very specifically to you?
Well, yeah, the 9/11 was a big thing. But no, I don't remember anything. It just sticks out. Do you?
Well, my memories are different than yours, Mom.
Well, I thought you remember what I went through, but
I mean, a man landing on the moon was a big, usually my first thing that pops into my head.
yeah, and I guess we did watch that. It was a big thing. I'd forgotten about landing on the moon. Yeah, probably was.
Have you had a friend that you've had for most of your life? Do you have a best friend, or I'm guessing that maybe it would have changed, but do you have a long-term friend that you would consider a best friend? Or did you have one?
I had a friend all through high school because her dad and my dad farmed together. And back then, like corn pickers and combines were really expensive. So they went in halves and bought those two. And they would farm, when one get through with the soybeans or the corn or whatever, they go to the other farm. But he had a daughter that was the same age as me, and we were good friends through school. They both went to the same church, so we both were friends and went home a lot of times with each other on Sundays and spent our Sunday afternoons playing and that kind of stuff. But then when we graduated, she went her way with her other boyfriend, and of course I went the other way with Paul. So, and then since then I've had several, but some of them has been through work, because I worked at Friends Fellowship Community for 30 years, and I had a lot of friends there that I'll never forget. And some were working friends, and some were our people that moved in there with families, and you get acquainted with their families, and sometimes they eventually, weed away, but I made a lot of friends that way. Now, I have more friends through probably the people that I work with through Synergy Home Care, and that's been in the last 10 years. And two of them that I would work like 6 hours, and she'd come in and replace me on the next 6 hours or 8 hours. And now she goes to the same church as I do, and we're very good friends in Richmond. So,
who's that?
Who is it?
Mm-hmm.
I knew you would ask me her name. Can't even think of it right now. So don't ever get 86 years old because you don't remember everything.
What about Lois, Mom? Lois Ladd.
Oh, well, Lois Ladd has been my longest friend. I forgot about that. Mm-hmm. Jim, her husband, was probably, I could say he was Paul's best friend. And when Paul had a brother in California that passed away, and we didn't have the money to fly out there or anything, and he went to Jim Ladd, and he immediately gave him the money so he could fly out there to the funeral. And that was in Roseville, California. And Lois and I would always stay home, and they had several children, and Jim was also a commissioner over the boys. So after every ball game, we ended up going to their house, replaying the ball games. The kids would all play in the basement or do whatever. And so I guess I would have to say Lois is probably my friend that I've had forever.
She's still living?
She's still living.
And so you guys have been friends for 60 years?
Since your 20s, probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and she's 90.
Wow.
So I think she just turned 91 in June. So, yeah.
Wow.
Jim also flew Paula home when Dad had his heart attack and his bypass surgery.
That's right. Paula was in Colorado Springs when you guys lived out there, and her dad had that heart attack, well, we didn't know for sure what happened. He got sick at work, and they took him to Reed Hospital in Richmond, and then they took him by ambulance to Indianapolis. And Paula wanted to come home to see her dad, and because we didn't know if that was the last time or not. But he had open heart surgery, and back in 1985, that was a big deal of having an open heart surgery. But he came through it, and Jim sent the money to your mom, and she got to come home. And
Nice.
I don't know how long she was home, but it was a good gesture that's what a friend is for, and he had the money to do those kind of things. He had a good job.
So later in life, after my grandpa Paul passed away, you found love a second time. We talk about Harold briefly and what that relationship meant to you. Why it was so important to you?
Took yes, I did find another man. How it came up, he was a doctor, and he was in Newcastle at the time. And I had pulled up out there in the front of their office, but I was going to another place of business. And he walked out, and he said something about he always parked his car someplace else. And he said, I never can get used to Newcastle. And so I just walked up to him, and I said, I've lived here several years off and on. And he got to talking about he lost his wife, and he just could not get himself going again. And I told him that I had lost my husband, and I said, I know what you're talking about. There's a blank space there that will never be filled again. And so he asked me where I lived, and I told him in Williamsburg. And he said he lived in Pendleton. And he said, what's your phone number? I might just want to go out for dinner sometime. And so I gave him my phone number. I trusted him. He did. He called me, and we went to Old Charlie's in Richmond. And we met there. He drove, and I drove. And we had a long talk, a nice dinner. And it continued after that for 2 or 3, I don't know how many years we did go together. He asked me to marry him several times. And we spent a lot of good times in it. It wasn't the same as having your first husband, but it was good for both of us. And then we were so close to getting married, and I didn't want to move out of the house I'm in now because it was Mom and Dad's, and it was a part of Paul that lived there. I just wasn't quite ready to I didn't want to rent it out. I didn't know what to do with the house. And that was one thing that put me off. And then I had Thelma that I was taking kind of care of. She couldn't see, she couldn't hear. I took care of her bills. I went up and got her mail and read it to her every day. She couldn't see to read the Bible, and so I would read, and she got worse, and I had to put her in a nursing home. She didn't live there too long, but I don't know, as time goes on, if I would have ever gotten married or not. It was different. It was different, and he had a lot to offer me. We went on a lot of trips together down in Florida, Tennessee, different times. Owned a timeshare down there. he bought that when I was with him. And we went to Pennsylvania. That's where his home was when he was a kid. He'd never been to Frankenmuth, so I took him up there. And our plans were, after we got married, he was going to take me to Grand Canyon and take a 5-week trip out west.
Wow.
But that never happened.
Do you have any advice for young people?
Any what?
Advice?
Well, live your life as you want. I mean, whatever is out there, just don't hold back. Just grasp it and live that life, and don't wait till you're too old to think, I wish I had done it. And I really can't think of anything that I could say now, I wish that I had done it. I went on cruises, and Paul and I had never been on a cruise. So I went on one with your mother, and one with my niece. Seems like I went on another one. But that was one thing I really wanted to do, was go on a cruise, and I did. But I can't think of anything else that I would really... Skydive. I wanted to skydive on Fremont all the time.
No, not skydive. Zip line.
Yeah, that's what it was. Not skydive. I've been scared to death to do that. Yeah, love that. But I think that's it.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say to the world? Your family, your friends, anything?
I don't know what I'd done without my grandchildren. They were Paul and I's life for a long time. Don't know what I'd done without my children. I was able to have 2 girls. It pleased me to no end. And I think Paul kind of wanted a boy, but...
He got a tomboy.
Huh?
He got a tomboy, that's close.
Well, it's true. He got a tomboy. Margaret. So, no, I think very happy.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
Oh, look at me.
I can't think of anything else. I'm very happy right now. I've had cancer. I'm cancer-free now, and I'm not like I was when I was 50 years old, but I can still go, I can still drive, I can still clean my own home, mow my own yard, and I'm thankful for the things I can do at 86 years old.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing your time and your story with us, and
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.